Watnick, 15346 Davenport Road, Little Falls, Minnesota. They're applying for an after-the-fact application for an interim use permit for a home extended business for a retail store on site located in point of the east half of southeast quarter, section 18, Township 29, range 30, Pike Creek Township. So at this time, I'd ask that the applicant state their name for the record.
It's Michael Wachnick.
Okay, so then we'll move on to ask Amy with the staff report. If you'd like to go ahead with that, it'd be great.
You bet, Mr. Chair. So this is an application for an after-the-fact interim use permit to continue a home extended business located in Section 18 of Pike Creek Township. The ordinance reference is Section 604.8, and that does require an interim use permit for home extended business. This is a plat map of Pike Creek Township, and the red dot is the location of the parcel. And then here is the request received from the applicant, and then along with a site drawing. And then here's an aerial photograph of the parcel. It's outlined in blue. And then some oblique imagery of the parcel. The applicant owns and lives on the 75-acre parcel in Section 18 of Pike Creek Township. And the parcel is serviced by Davenport Road, which is a gravel township road. In 2018, a permit was granted to construct a dwelling and attached garage. And then in 2021, a permit was granted to construct a 40 by 50 plumbed shed for personal storage, plus a septic system. In August 2021, Land Services staff received a complaint that a retail store had been established within the new shed, and the complaint was verified and a first notice of violation was sent. The 40 by 50 building is being utilized as a clothing boutique. The applicant is requesting an after-the-fact interim use permit to continue operating the boutique within the existing building. The applicant has stated that about 60 to 70% of the business is conducted online, and the store is open to the public 3 days a week for a total of 12 hours. And then here are your performance standards for home extended businesses. I'm not going to go through them, but I'll circle back to any of them if you'd like. The surrounding land use consists of agricultural property with rural homesteads. The nearest residence is located approximately 350 feet to the south. That property has an interim use permit to operate a home extended business, and that one is specifically a custom exempt meat processing facility, and that use was permitted in April 2021. The applicable comprehensive plan goals and objectives is in Ag A1 and A2. Objective 1. And then local economic development goal C1, objective 1, objective 8, goal C2, objectives 1 and 2, 7 and 19. And then just a reminder that with interim use permits, you must put a condition on this for an end date. 23 notices were sent and no comment was received prior to the public hearing. And then here are your interim use criteria questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, with the applicant, would you have anything to add to the staff report, or you have anything else to say, or go ahead?
Sure, I can just give you a little bit of the background behind the project. So this kind of started out with my wife having a little bit of a shopping habit of her own, passion for clothing. And so she decided to start her own little clothing boutique business out of our house. Mainly online through the Facebook, social media platforms. And then it kind of evolved from there. You know, all of a sudden people were inquiring, well, can we just come out and grab it instead of paying the $10 shipping on a, $7 t-shirt or something like that. And then it evolved from picking up, well, as long as I'm here, can I browse through what you have? So we had above our garage a bonus room in our house that she started setting up like as a storefront. And then why we're here kind of after the fact, I think, is two reasons. One was some misunderstanding on my part, but also some miscommunication on the county's part during the permitting process of the shed. But anyways, we kind of decided that we were starting to see people come into our house that we no longer knew. They weren't just friends or family anymore. It was kind of some strangers, and just it started to feel uncomfortable. So that's where we decided to then build a separate small 40 by 50 building and just have it out there with its own entrance type of thing. And so I kind of came to the permitting process for the shed, you know, I didn't clarify the use for it, because I wasn't asked, but I didn't think it was even a concern, because prior to that part of the process, the county already contacted me. There was another anonymous call the year before that we had a business in our house. And so I talked with, didn't deny it, of course. So then they agreed to take that portion of our house, measure it, and say, okay, this is a commercial business now, which I thought it was a little unfair compared to everyone else selling Tupperware, Mary Kay, everything else out of their house, but fine, whatever. This might be a little bit of a upscale from that. So when they zoned part of our house commercial, I thought that was, you can do business, you know? So the fact that I didn't know was when we moved from the house garage to a garage 30 feet away, this part came into play. So I didn't want you guys to think I was trying to pull one over the county and do this, because we wouldn't have been advertising grand opening on social media and everything else if that was the case. But that's kind of how we got here today. So Sharon sent me a letter, or the county sent me a letter, and I came in and said what I need to do and fill out the application. So the store is still, a majority of all her sales are done online. I take a lot of boxes every day to the post office, Speedy. She's open 3 days a week for 4 hours at a time. So it's like 12 hours total per week that people come out for a couple hours. Some days nobody comes out at all. Depends on the weather. If it's crappy and rainy, we get a little busy. If it's beautiful and sunny, people got other things to do besides shop. And I don't plan on changing that kind of format where this will be a 5-day-a-week retail store. This is where I live. I gotta have some privacy too. So it's never gonna be probably more than what it is today. And my wife now understands in this type of business, you need to grow your customer base online, because, you know, locally, you can only still have so many customers that need so many clothes. You know, it's not a consumable product. So that's, you know, the background of why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Anybody on the planning commission have any questions for staff or for our applicant?
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Stish.
perhaps a clarification between you and Amy as to what you were referring to as, I don't know, a classification as commercial. I assume, would you clarify that, Amy, what happened there?
Yeah, I certainly can. So when, on the assessing side of things is a portion of the home was classified as commercial for valuation and assessment purposes because of the use of that area. So the county picked up, when that new home was built, because it's pretty new, when that new home was built, then when that was being evaluated, then it was known that there was a commercial use within that, and so a portion of that home was valued for commercial purposes. On the zoning side, it's considered a home-based business when it's within the confines of the home, so that did not trigger a need for any sort of permitting like we're going through now. When that moved separate from the home in its own designated building, that's when it became a home extended business. The valuation of building changed, so the valuation for commercial is now on that freestanding, and then also it triggered the zoning requirement for an interim use permit, because it's now being carried on separate outside of the home, and that's one of the triggers in the ordinance.
Thank you. I'd have another question also on the performance standards. I don't know if you can go back to 1211.3B.
Let's see. 1211.3.
3B.
Yeah, there. Shall be incidental and subordinate to the primary use of the premises for farming and residential purposes. When, say this takes off and all of a sudden the store is open 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I don't think you're planning to go there, but what if? When do you say, well, that's really not the intention of ordinance, that should really relocate to a commercial area? When and how does that happen?
So we certainly look at, there's a couple of things we look at. One of them is how the assessing staff is classifying the property as a whole, because the primary use is really what they're going to assess on. So we look at that. Also, then we look at if it no longer becomes the primary residence. You generally, if they live on site, that's going to be the primary use all the time. If they live off site, move off site, and then they're operating that and they're renting the home, then so there's lots of different things that we would look at. I don't think there's a really hard and fast threshold there, but I think it would no longer meet the criteria of a home extended business if if the people that owned the business and primarily ran it, didn't live on site. Up until that point, it's generally we're not going to get to that point where it's not considered a home extended business unless they're adding on additional staff that is beyond the threshold of the home extended business.
It's kind of hard to answer some of the questions then based on, this is almost like a rezone to commercial if you allow a lot of use. I mean,
Yep.
a
Well, and
store on every corner out in the country would be inappropriate.
And Mr. Chair, that's why it's an interim use permit. Interim use permit is a little more honed in to the circumstances of that individual property owner. So you do have that. Also, it's very specific for a boutique, so it can't really morph into something different without them coming back. And you also have the ability to put conditions on it, which could include the open hours, the number of open hours a week. And so those are things that you have the ability to consider and do.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a couple comments if I can.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
So as far as kind of this use and how the property lays out, so when we built the house, we had our yard put in around it, right? And when you drive in our driveway, there's 20-some acres of cornfield just to the north of us, and also to the east of us is another cornfield. Where we located this building was right in the middle of our yard, between the yard and the woods. So it didn't disrupt anything that the primary residence already disrupted from the ag part. So I don't think there's any conflict there. Also, as far as, one of the questions we had on our interview was, how does this impact the neighborhood? Well, first of all, I think now we'll be the only one of the last people in this neighborhood that actually has a business. The neighbor to the north has an excavating business who's got heavy equipment ripping up and down this road all the time, and I'm okay with it. I knew that when we built the house, it's fine. Neighbor to the south of us, which are relatives, he just got approved for his meat locker, and that's gonna be a busier business than this, I promise you. And now the neighbor to the west of us is putting up his business for a sawmill, commercial sawmill. So it's like, we kind of fit in that way. That's probably why none of those neighbors are here. And, whether it's a 3-day or 5-day a week business, that part to me, I don't think would change your decision either way. It's not really gonna decide to me whether this should get approved or not, even though I don't want it to turn into a 5-day business. We got little kids, we got a family, we have a life, it's not what I want. But I support my wife.
I guess, Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out that you're not comparing apples to apples there, an excavating business, a meat plant, those,
That's not.
versus a boutique out in the country. So,
Well, part of it is though, with the open hours, I'm looking at it from the traffic side, right?
sure.
And we
And-
have
and we will-
primarily women that come out in minivans or light SUVs compared to my neighbor that's driving heavy equipment, backhoes and things like that. And in our phone call, I don't know if you had those minutes, but Ron Hirsch from the Township was on our phone call for the kind of the informational meeting that led up to this meeting, and stressed that the Township was fine with it. They had no concerns as far as maybe a little added traffic on the road and then the road condition, if it could handle it, things like that, so.
Mr. Chair,
You done, Dave?
Yes, sorry.
Go ahead, Marvin.
I got a couple questions for Mike here. First of all, I think we're all familiar, you do own a business in town and do own that building, correct?
Yes.
So my question is, starting up another business, I don't know if all your sites are full there, or there's numerous other places in town that this boutique could have been put into. Can you explain to me why that was not done that way?
Sure. First of all, with my business, the reason why my business is where it is because there was nothing downtown worth purchasing without sticking an arm and a leg into it as far as expense. Everything downtown is so old, half the buildings are empty because people can't afford to put the new roofs on them that they need. That's largely cost. Number two is, it was gonna be a part-time business that my wife wanted to be able to do on her time. So I have really no hours invested in other than running her boxes to town for her while she works full-time at the hospital. So it's kind of a thing where it was convenient, where she could still do some of the duties for this business because of the social media, the computer, all that stuff, while at home and still not be away from the family. Third thing is the experience. I strongly believe the reason why we're having the success we are is because we are not in town. We're not another shop in this town. It's out in the country, unique experience. I think that's gonna even build more off my father-in-law that's got the meat locker. If you haven't been out there or toured that, he's got a couple monster apple orchards that he's getting ready to open for traffic. And it's kind of about that kind of country experience, it's something different. So that's why we wanted it that way. In town, you're committing to a store, you're committing to 5 or 6 days a week, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that's not what we wanted, especially with it being mostly online.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Butcher.
Amy, is something like this in taxed commercial?
Yes, the building that this is out of is classified as commercial and for property tax reasons, it's taxed at the commercial rate.
Okay,
Not the whole property, just that building.
I understand, thank you.
Anybody else?
Just a couple of questions, Mike. So this is gonna be just family-run or wife-run, no employees outside of the family?
Right? That's
Okay.
how it is now.
And I don't know if I read this or if it's something planned with the sewer. Is that already done or something that's?
Right. So when I designed the building, I designed it to fit in the country. So if you look at it, it looks like any other person's pole shed with a little kind of lean-to, and it's got a nice big garage door. So I just was thinking down the road one day, when we sell our place at retirement or whenever, this will be a nice shed and usable for that function. We did put a bathroom in it because I didn't know, again, for a future owner, for one day for our parents, if we need to convert this to a little place for them for their care. So in the walls has all the plumbing for a kitchen. None of it's hooked up, but it's just in there because it's easy and cheap to do during the early construction stages. But it's built, basically it looks like a shed, but it's built like a house. It's got the quality of windows, the insulation, heating and cooling, full septic for one bathroom. So it wasn't a cheap project, but it's gonna end up, where if we ever sold, someone's gonna say that, well, this building doesn't fit in because this was an old store. You would never know that driving by.
Okay, second question I have is, you said 3 days a week. Is that Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? What are the?
Wednesday.
What do you anticipate that
It's
being?
Wednesday evenings, Friday kinda late afternoon, and then it's Saturday morning.
And do you propose that to be what you're going to continue operating under?
Yeah, it's, my wife puts out feedback on her social media, trying to get response from the customers on what works for them. So, it used to be a Monday, now it's a Wednesday, but as far as the number of hours per week, I don't see that changing a lot. We just, like I said, we have little kids, we have a family, I have a full-time business, she has a full-time job at the hospital. It's, it's not designed to be a 24-hour retail store. That's why we want to focus more on the online part, because you can do that on your own time. You don't have to have the door open and somebody staffing it. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So it kind of went from this online business to people stopping in, just wanting to save shipping to pick up a few items. So as long as I'm here, can I buy a few items? And then next thing you know, there's an anonymous tip that we got a full store going. So that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got one question, Mike. Is there any way, do you have any idea like how many items a week you'd sell? I know that's tough, but I mean, are we talking a pickup load, FedEx load, a suitcase? I mean, just to
Yeah.
give us a perspective. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say probably less than 100. I mean, because I take a lot of the boxes to the shipping places, and most of them are like a T-shirt that is in a little bag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I could be way off because I really don't keep track. But I would be surprised if it was 100. I mean, that would be a lot of sales for 1 week.
But I mean, it ain't like a pickup box full of boxes.
No,
That's, because you can get a lot of items in a little box, I understand that, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, boxes are bulky. Everything is kind of in this like synthetic bags.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions?
Chair, just one follow-up.
Go ahead, Brent.
Again, Mike, 3 days a week, 60% online, the 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, how many people are actually coming to the residence
Yeah.
store?
It's hit or miss. You know, like I said, there's some days if it's beautiful out, Saturday, people are gone. They're at the lake, they're at weddings or wherever. There might not be anybody. And if it's a crappy day, you know, there could be a dozen cars. You know, so it's kind of everywhere in between. Depends also if she's promoting you know, like a new arrival of some new product that is, you know, in time for the season, or, you know, she does some of that kind of stuff too that might drive some traffic, but it's truly hit or miss. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it, you know. The weekdays are probably less than the Friday or the Saturday, you know, the Wednesday is.
So at
people-
no, sorry to interrupt.
Well, just because people work, you know, on Wednesdays, it's a weekday, you know, so.
So at no time do you anticipate there being more than 20 cars in a day?
Not for her normal 3-day-a-week hours. I mean, so what she started to do last year was kind of a customer thank you, a customer appreciation, like a 4-hour on a Saturday afternoon, where she invites some other vendors to participate. So, you know, people that sell children's books, we got people that have make homemade signs. So like more crafty stuff. It's a little outdoor event that she's done now 2 years in a row. That brings, you know, more than 20 cars, but it's once a year and we rent the porta potty, so it's none of that concern and that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Marv.
So, Mike, when items are purchased, I assume they're purchased online and they're delivered by a FedEx truck or something like that. And I would assume not all items are at the post office shipped out. So the truck is coming there picking up. Is that correct or not?
That's not correct. I'd love it if they would, but you won't get a truck to pick up anything out there.
So otherwise, deliveries are made out there? Most deliveries are made?
Yes.
How frequent are these trucks coming out there delivering?
Either, honestly, probably daily or every other day. I mean, between what she's doing for that and what the neighborhood's buying on Amazon, it's probably every day. UPS or somebody's coming in the yard, and it's 1 or 2 boxes that get thrown on her step.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Chair, question for Amy. Was there some question on the sewer system that was permitted and installed and?
Correct, that was permitted at the time the shed was permitted, and
Okay.
so we had a design and everything for that, so no, there's no issue with
I
that.
saw, came across something in the staff report that confused me on that, but no confusion on that, right?
Nope,
Okay,
no.
good.
Okay. So at this time, I'll move to public comment. I don't know if you guys have anything to say, or if you do, please go up to the mic. I hate to have you get up, but if you could go to the mic and state your name and say your piece.
My name is Ambrose Traeger, and I have no objections to the business they conduct because it's done in a very practical
Okay, and Ambrose, you live directly north, right? Your farm is north of Watniks, and then you lived there for a lot of years, right? How many years?
40 years.
Yep, okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I understand correctly, we talked about you could put conditions on this, interim conditions on
Yeah.
this, and limiting.
Could you wait 1 second? I still got public comment, so. Is there any other public comment? I'll ask 3 times. Is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? If there is no more, we'll close this portion of the meeting to the public comment, so that'll be closed. So now we'll go ahead, Marv, if you had what you wanted to discuss.
All I wanted to know, conditions, we talked about, you could possibly put some conditions on, and I just wanted to think, the board to think about possible conditions that we might want to put on if we choose to go forward with this.
So do you have any idea?
Limiting the amount of time, traffic somehow to it, because this is this is a township road. Wondering, before it turns into something larger.
Okay, I don't know. My thoughts are is, that's fine with the board, but my thoughts are, so if you want this to go through or not, okay, we gotta decide that, okay? But if you're gonna put conditions on how many times you go up and down the road and times like that, that's no different than us putting conditions on a dairy farm for hauling manure up and down the road. I know this in ag, and this is allowed in ag with the interim use permit. But as far as trying to regulate how many times people go up and down a road, I don't know, I just got a tough time with that. I could see maybe the hours, or whatever, or the days or whatever we come up with, but as far as some of that thinking on to me, it's no different than if you're a dairy farmer hauling manure up and down the road. And I know it is different because it's a boutique and not a dairy farm, but we ain't gonna limit them using the road, right? I don't know, that's my thoughts.
You never know, some lady might hear about a sale and come flying down that gravel road,
well,
dust flying.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead, Mr. Butcher.
is that my wife has drugged me out on some of these shopping trips, rural shopping trips in southern Minnesota, and there are roads, you talked about that, where you're gonna have a butcher shop down the road and an apple orchard. And, really, what's wrong with having some of these country businesses like that, is if they fit in and they're not too dense. I mean, yeah, I've gone to a lot of places that were honeydew lists, so I don't see any reason.
So let me ask you this, Mike. First, if we're gonna do an end date, if this does go through, okay? So typically, a lot of these, they go with, the end date is like when you sell the property. I mean, is that something that you do, or do you want like a specific date? Or what would be that you could, agree with?
I would be fine with if we sold the property. I mean, honestly.
Cause you ain't gonna sell the business, cause
Right.
you'd sell your property.
And that's why I designed it like a shed,
Yeah.
so that it fit, because our goal, it's a big place. I mean, I don't wanna be there when I retire. It's gonna be
Yeah.
too much upkeep, and we don't need that kind of space with the kids out of the house
Yeah.
and.
Okay, and then, so that you're okay with, end date of when you sell a property. To go along with when Marv was getting at, I think, you state that you use, you do this like 3 days a week, okay? So I don't know, I don't like putting restrictions on that, but if that's what Marv's asking, I don't know. I don't wanna ask you to only do it 3 days a week, but it's 5 days a week or 6 days a week, or what are you, I mean, you're the one that asked it, Marv, not me, so I mean, I'm just trying to help you out there.
Where this started out, and the way I understood, it was just a small scale, and you wanted to keep it a small scale. And I'm concerned that it may turn into something larger, and if it does, good for you, but if it turns to that much larger, will that light township road support all the traffic and all back there? And it's very rural, very remote, you know, obviously. I've been down that road enough in the past, and there were just concerns, and how do we move forward with that?
So my comment back would be, I would say I would not want any restricting as far as number of hours or days. It just doesn't make sense. I can move it right 30 feet into my house, and then it's perfectly fine. So I mean, that just seems like, that doesn't make sense, why you'd want to restrict that, because now it's not in a home, but it's 30 feet over in a garage. We could be, all the traffic we want over here and be law abiding, but over here we should have a restriction. You know, that seems to me like that's an overstep on the board. The second part of your question, I think Ron Hirsch already addressed, as far as the township spoke up on our recorded phone call, that there's no concern about the road condition. Like I said, there's a heavy equipment operator going up and down. Now I got a sawmill going across the road that they have, if you would see the equipment coming in there, you know. And besides, did you put restrictions, to be fair, did you put restrictions on my neighbor who's got a butcher shop? You know, was there a certain number of people that could come there, a certain amount of cars? Because that's gonna be a busier business than this will be, I promise you. There's anybody that's in the farming, butchering business, it's busy. There's a shortage everywhere. People aren't going to the retail stores for meat anymore because it's $14 a pound for a steak. You know, he's gonna be as busy as he wants to be. So it doesn't seem fair that you do that for one and then the next neighbor has nothing. Two different businesses, but you're talking about traffic on the road.
We have put restrictions on a lot of these.
Well, I'm not aware of one if there's any on my neighbor. That's all I'm asking. Just be fair, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. So you guys,
Oh,
I
Mr.
heard
Chair.
you sigh, so go ahead, Dave.
You know, one thing that could be done, I'm not proposing it, but you could put on the end date on it, you could say, 5 years from today, it expires. Then you just come in and review it. Then you'd know what's happening in the neighborhood. But who knows, maybe 1 year from today, it's busier. You know, that'd be a tough way to regulate that. And we have done things like that before with IUPs, but typically it is when ownership changes hands, as was discussed here. So that's all. I just thought I'd throw that out. That's a way to review these commercial uses out in ag.
And how far are you off 27? Is it half mile? 3/4?
Maybe a quarter,
Okay.
you know. And to be fair, you know, why would you want restrictions? It's because of complaints, isn't it? I mean, you don't want neighbors calling in saying, well, they're open at 2 in the morning and we can't sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one neighbor here that supports it. None of the neighbors are here even complaining or have any concerns, even though last year was still open technically in our house. It hasn't really changed as far as size from there to this garage, you know, as far as sales, transactions, things like that. It's just now we have a little better, safer space to operate out of.
And Mr. Chair, there are performance standards linked to it, which include hours and, you know, lights and noise and all that kind of thing. So
There's already
they
regulations.
can be enforced by land services.
Yeah, there's already regulations already, so. Okay, you guys ready for the criteria questions? Okay, I guess we are. So I'll start with the first one, Dave Brucher. The use will not put an excess burden on roadways, utilities, and public facilities such as parks and schools.
No,
Your reasoning?
just because those few cars in that little bit of time, it just isn't a big deal. You know, I don't see it being a problem. Like you talked about, you got road construction equipment go up and down there. There's few cars coming in. I don't see it's any burden at all. I don't see how it could be. And especially since the township has already said that, you know, so they know better than I do. That's my reasoning.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to comment on question one?
I'll just
Go ahead,
comment,
Brent.
Mr. Chair. He's talking about, you know, arguably reusing it 4 hours a day, 3 days a week. I don't think there's gonna be any additional cars. He said there's gonna be less than 20 in a day. I don't think it's gonna cause any burdens.
Okay. I kind of agree with what was stated also, you know, being only a quarter mile, half mile off of the Highway 27, you know, I mean, it's a short distance, so it ain't like you're going down the gravel for 5 miles or anything like that. Otherwise, good thing you're only a quarter mile away because some people would probably get lost. But if it was my neighbor lady, she drives past the road more than he's going to have traffic. I mean, so I don't think there's no excess of burden on the roadways utilities. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to question 2. So we'll go to Marvin on this one. The request will not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other property in immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor impede the normal and orderly development improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in area.
I don't believe it will, and with the township supporting this and the neighbors, no objections, and even one neighbor coming here and supporting it means that it should not.
Anybody else have a comment for that? My comment would be, listening to the applicant, you know, he kind of had a little bit of a strategy on where placement of the building was and things like that. He took some of that stuff into consideration, trying to be as good as he could for the whole neighborhood as far as disturbing the neighbors and things like that. So I just don't think it's a problem, so. Anyways, we'll move on to question 3, and we'll have Dave Stish answer this one. The use in the opinion of the planning commission is reasonably related to the existing land use and environment. Groundwater, surface water, air quality in the surrounding area will not be adversely affected by this proposed use.
Yeah, it is permitted in this area, obviously. That's why we're here today. And it does have business standards, which include septic systems and hours and noise standards. No impact on the neighborhood.
Anybody else? I would just state that, yeah, I agree, and then really shouldn't be much groundwater and surface water air quality problems. You know, just the type of business it is. It's a clean, definitely a very clean business. You know, he already has a sewer system for his building. When he has a little additional thing, he has porta potties, things like that. That'd be the only concern that this type of business on this property would be a sewage thing, and it's already taken care of. So there's no issue with that as far as I can see. Anybody else? Otherwise, we'll move to question 4, and we'll do Brent with this one. The use is consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use.
I think I'll just reiterate some of the things that were said in question number 3. I mean, it is in ag, a home extended business is an allowable use with an IUP. So it's clothing, limited traffic on the road. I think we're all right there.
Anybody else? Marv?
So I have got a question here for planning and zoning. I'm very familiar with this property, and if I remember correctly, there's a cemetery right in the backyard there. Is there setbacks in that? And I'm assuming planning and zoning knows this here.
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of a cemetery there. And the setbacks would simply just be from the property line. Yep.
Okay, any other comments? We got enough for that one? Okay. So number 5, I'll take that one. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or the water plan of the county. No, I don't believe it's in conflict with the comprehensive plan. If you look at the comprehensive plan and our goals, you know, it states that they can run a business with the proper permitting. He's looking for an interim use permit. He can and do that, and that's the step he's going to. I know it's after the fact, but you know, some of these things, at least he came in to try and make it right. As far as the water plan for the county, I don't think it's no issue on anything, because there's just a type of business. There isn't really gonna be any problem with any kind of water really to speak of, because really no difference if he just has that building there as a shed or a business, you know. And the type of stuff he's selling isn't gonna be anything, so that's my thoughts on that. Anybody have anything to add to that?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I guess I'd request Amy to go to the ordinance that was cited in the staff report. And, you know, residences are obviously allowed, home businesses are allowed. But if we look a little further down onto local economic development, it's,
Are you looking for the ordinance or the comp plan?
no, I'm looking for the ordinance that you cited. Yep.
The-
These goals, goal C1, objective 1.
So the
objective
comp
eight.
plan.
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
comp plan is
Right.
in the back.
yep.
Like that?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Yeah, so, yeah, that support local entrepreneurs, allow for a variety of businesses. This should be a desirable county for business startup and relocation. Limit industrial development, you know, we have performance standards in place. This is suited for this rural setting, I guess, you know, as the applicant cited. There are other businesses in the area, and this might even enhance them if this apple orchard comes to fruition. Fruition, that's a kind of a fruity kind of comment. But, yeah, you know, there might be a multiple stop thing, you know, that happens on that day. Yeah, compatible with the surrounding area, compatible with ordinance and goals and objectives. And the water plan, you know, I guess Clint's already reviewed that. There's other comment.
Okay, anybody else? Does anybody need any other things clarified before we vote on the questions? Okay, if not, we're gonna vote on the questions now. So start with Dave Brucher first. The use will not put excess of burden on roadways, utilities, and public facilities such as schools and parks. Dave Brucher.
No,
Mr. Chair, do you
Yes.
mean yes?
You should say,
it will not. Yes, you're correct. It will not put a burden on it. Yes, it will not.
yes.
I'm sorry. I'm getting punchy here.
Okay, Marv Treadle,
Yes.
Dave Stish,
Yes.
Brent Lindgren,
Yes.
Clint Catherine, myself is yes. Question 2, the request will not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor impede the normal or ordinary development and improvement of surrounding vacant properties for uses predominant in the area. Marv Treadle.
Yes.
Dave Stish.
Yes.
Brent Lindgren.
Yes.
Myself, Clint Catherine's yes. Dave Brucher.
Yes,
Okay, question 3. The use and the opinion of the planning commission is reasonably related to the existing land use and the environment. Groundwater, surface water, air quality in the surrounding area will not be adversely affected by this proposed use. Dave Stish.
Yes.
Brent Lindgren.
Yes.
Clint Catherine, myself is yes. Dave Brucher.
yes,
Marv Treadle.
Yes.
Question 4, the use is consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. Brent Lindgren,
Yes.
myself, Clint Catherine's yes. Dave Brucher,
yes,
Marvin Treadle,
Yes.
Dave Stish.
Yes.
Okay, the use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or the water plan of the county. Myself, Clint Catherine is yes. Dave Brucher,
yes,
Marvin Treadle,
Yes.
Dave Stish,
Yes.
Brent Lindgren.
Yes.
Okay, everything's kind of answered in the affirmative. So would somebody want to make a motion to,
The end date, or that we proposed,
we can put that in your motion. if you
which
wanna-
was change of ownership,
Yeah.
correct? Okay. All right, that's all you need for that, it's just change of ownership, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I would move that we would recommend this interim use request, after the fact interim use requests to the county commissioners
with
for their approval.
end date.
Yeah, with the proposed end date being change of ownership of the property.
Okay. Is there a second?
I would second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, second's been made by Brent. Okay, so now, all in favor, say aye. So, Dave Brucher,
Aye.
Marvin Treadle,
Aye.
Dave Stish,
Aye.
Brent Lindgren,
Aye.
myself, Clint Catherine, is aye. Okay, so we're gonna approve, that the commissioners would, go forward with this. So, the next step is to get back with Amy or staff at Land Services, and the next commissioner's date that they would come up would be.
So this will go to the county board meeting on the 19th. And so at their regular county board meeting, they'll consider your application, what they heard at the hearing, and the recommendation of the planning commission. And that's when they'll either grant or deny the permit.
Do I need to be present for that?
You do not need to be present, but you certainly can be if you'd like. Okay?
Mr. Chair, before the applicant leaves, I just like to ask him something. I don't know, it seemed to me that you were a little put out by this process. Did you find something tedious or wrong about the procedure? I mean, the only way we can enforce ordinance is by complaints a lot of times. I don't know, was this a complaint that was phoned in? And I don't think you should look upon that as a personal wrongdoing. It was just the way it is. You did what you thought was right. You did, I don't know that you should be unduly put out by the process. did you find the process bad or what?
I understand the reason for it,
Okay.
because of the current zoning, you have to respect that, nor would I want some neighbor of mine to do something that would totally not fit and potentially change the value of my property, et cetera. So, I mean, I understand the process. Part of it, I think, is a little bit much that you don't really have to get into some of, but I understand it, because you have to have set criteria, because you don't, my business might not be the same as someone else's that's here and someone else's issue, so you gotta have kind of these criteria that addresses kind of all those concerns. But-
Yeah, and we have to be thorough with every applicant, just as thorough with you as we are with somebody else.
Right.
Because our decisions or the commissioner's decision can be appealed, so.
And maybe the fee could be a little cheaper. If you're looking for feedback.
And I think you understand that if the next owner would happen to want to continue the business, they just have to do this application process.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you, Micah, you're free to go, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck in your future endeavors on this.
All right, thanks.
I
Okay.
think we could keep them a little longer, I don't know, it's not 10 o'clock.
No, we got other things here, come on. Okay, the next item on agenda is proposed ordinance amendments. So you guys have that sheet in front of you.
We do,
So I don't know, I'm kind of confused on that.
Some more.
I'll go through it.
yeah.
Let's cheer.
Better have other ones.
Yes, I
Never happens to me.
I wanted to be gone.
What are you saying, mine suck?
Yeah. Okay, so we have ordinance, proposed ordinance. Yeah. If you guys could just go on the hallway, it would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Or stay for the ordinance amendment.
No. Okay, we're gonna go to our proposed ordinance amendments. You guys have that sheet in front of you. We'll ask Amy to go through, what the staff has for this for us, so go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we have one ordinance amendment that is being proposed, and it's on the monitor in front of you. And that's in addition to a section of our ordinance. The amendment reads, all meets and bounds subdivisions of land require the creation of 2 deeds to be recorded at the time the property is subdivided. A deed containing the legal description for the property to be conveyed, and a deed containing the legal description for the residual parcel not conveyed. So what's a meets and bounds? what's a meets and bounds parcel? It's a description of a parcel of land by references to course and distances around the tract or by reference to natural or record monuments. Most common method is to recite direction and length of each line as one would walk around the perimeter. So we generally see kind of two types of land descriptions. Plats, where it was lot 1, block 1 of whatever plat, or we see a meets and bounds, which is really, if you were to walk it, you'd go 50 feet in this direction, and then you'd turn, and then you'd go, that's really what a meets and bounds. That is a majority of what we see for how land is described in Morrison County on deeds, is meets and bounds. So the section that we're looking to add this into is 1503, which is our subdivision section. And it is the section that deals with meets and bounds subdivision and the circumstances under when you can do a meets and bounds subdivision. So we're looking to propose that as an item D on the end of that section. And then I have an example for you, so I can kind of lead you through what we have going on and why we're looking at this. This is a real life example that is it illustrates very well kind of what we're dealing with. This benefits not only the zoning department, but the recorder's office and the auditor treasurer's office, surveyors, title companies, and individual property owners. So this is an intact parcel with no splits coming off of it, okay? This is what it looked like many, 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 many years ago. Over time, of course, things get split. And so when this looked like this, the legal description was the northwest quarter of Section 29, Township 130, Range 29. Nice and sweet, short and sweet, easy, okay? Well, over the years, we had some splits come off of this. So you see in the upper right-hand corner, 3 parcels came off of this over the course of many years, okay? So we're focusing just on this big one, 120296, okay? So now that legal description that you just saw describes that entire quarter. Well, 120296 is no longer that entire quarter, okay? So the legal is that now. And really, essentially, all that's happening with this, because that is never redescribed, it's just tacking on the legal descriptions of the pieces that came off of it. So we get from the northwest quarter of Section 29, Township 130, Range 29, minus this parcel in that legal description, and the second parcel in that legal description, and that one. So you're essentially having to map out each of those individual parcels to wrap your arms around what that residual parcel looks like. So that's what we're working under now. We just got this survey in, so they want to split yet another piece off of this. And so what'll happen...
Well, just add minus that.
Well, there you go. Look at your monitor. So, yes. So when this comes through, this is what that legal description will look like now for 296. So we just keep tacking those things on, and it gets longer and longer and more complicated, and hope nobody makes a mistake when they're rewriting this legal description over and over and over. And hopefully we pick all of these up on a title search, okay? So these people recognized, though, that they wanted a cleaner description. So they had their surveyor do a residual deed for that remainder piece. And this is what this is what we ended up with. So it cleaned that up. And it's really a meets and bounds description of that individual parcel rather than describing all of the other parcels that came off of it, and then hoping all that closes and meets, okay? So getting back to the language then of this ordinance amendment, it would require that if you're making a split off, you need to go back and describe that residual piece also to clean those up. So that's the purpose of this ordinance amendment. And it is something I did discuss with the county board prior to even coming with this, and explained the need for that. The recorder's office and the auditor treasurer's office also articulated the value of this for really anyone who deals with land records. And so that's why we're putting it forward for public hearing, and then also hopefully for your recommendation for approval, and then approval by the county board. Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Dave.
Do most counties have this language? Are they trying to get it, or?
Yeah,
did
you know,
Mike get it?
it's all over the place, you know, it really, I'm not gonna say one of the few counties, but we're a little bit more liberal with the requirement to plat. So a lot of counties around us, you need to plat everything. Even if you're creating one parcel, you have to plat it, and you're doing a subdivision. And that kind of takes care of that.
Does the
Where
same thing this does.
correct. And so the reason why you don't see this language in our platting is because it's already required. But since we still allow up until the statutory threshold of 4 parcels or more for platting, we see a lot of meets and bounds subdivisions, and so we have maybe a little bit more unique situation than other counties that require platting at the first split.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or thoughts or?
No, Clint, I think you explained it very, very clearly, Amy, and it makes sense to me that to just clean it up, and just good housekeeping.
Yeah, and I think it adds that, just another safety factor of the description by having the two, you know, I think, I don't know. Go ahead, Dave.
No, thank you, Clint, and it's just personal experience here, is that with the properties we own, we have got more issues with property boundaries, and Fessler came out one time and surveyed a piece of property next to us. He said, you know that their boundary and your boundary, their boundary is 30 feet on your side, and your boundary is 30 feet on their side in the description. He said, what do you want to do with it? I said, as long as nobody complains, let's just leave the fence post where it is. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you know what I mean, is that you're going to go in. If they didn't complain, I wasn't complaining. You know, let's leave the fence post where it is. But no, to clean this stuff up is a good idea. Thank you.
Any other discussion or thoughts on this? Otherwise, we could attain a motion to recommend approval or denial of this ordinance.
This will go to the county board then, too?
Yes.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve this.
I second that.
Do you need public comment?
Yeah, you certainly could ask.
Before we vote, is there any public comment?
Fast.
I always have to do it.
Yep.
for you.
Any public comment?
For what?
For getting that paperwork, like, is it the seller, the buyer?
So,
You've got 2 different parcels, so whose responsibility is that?
we don't put the responsibility, by ordinance, we don't put the responsibility on anyone in particular. So that would be something where when we when we educate the surveyors and the title companies and all of that, it'll be whomever is commissioning the survey, more than likely then would have that work done.
Because
Yes.
if it's like anything else, it probably isn't a problem until the property is up for sale or sold.
Well, when it's gonna be split.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're making a change and you need that residual deed. So whoever is hiring the surveyor to do that, then would have that done, is how that typically would work. And the other thing is one of the things that I will propose to the county board is that within the resolution to adopt an ordinance amendment, they state what the effective date is, and we're looking at having that be effective December 1, so we have time to get that information out to the people that work in this industry, to give them a chance to record everything that they have now, because then after December 1, then we'd be looking for that residual deed.
Okay. So one more time, any other public comment? If not, we'll close this portion of the meeting to public comment. Okay, now we have a motion made and seconded. You have who did them?
Sharon does.
You have who did them? Okay. So to recommend that, our recommendation, this would go, we would recommend that we adopt this. So all in favor say aye. We'll go roll call. Dave Brucher,
Aye.
Marvin Treadle,
Aye.
Brent Lindgren,
Aye.
Dave Stish,
Aye.
and myself, Clint Catherine, is aye. So it passes. So we'll recommend to the commissioners that they approve this.
Okay, and then that will go for their consideration on the 19th as well, with the proposed effective date of December 1. So thank you.
Okay. So moving on, we got to approve our minutes from August 3rd, 2021. You guys get a chance to look through them.
That we approve the minutes as presented.
Okay.
Second that motion.
Motion made by Dave Stish and seconded by Dave Brucher. All in favor say aye. Dave Brucher,
Aye.
Marvin,
Aye.
Brent,
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Myself is yes, aye. Okay, it passes. Okay, we have any new business?
I don't think I have anything, Mr. Chair, just except to circle back with our ag zoning district stuff. I did have some discussion with the county board on kind of redefining the ag zoning district, and they want to work within the existing framework of the ordinance. We also did discuss, though, your involvement in that discussion. So once we kind of wrap up this really busy season, then what I'll probably do is reach out to you to get you to a planning session with the county board to discuss some changes to the existing ordinance within the ag zoning district. Primarily dwelling density and feedlot setbacks are going to be the two biggies. So I'll be in touch with you to schedule a planning session that works for all of you.
So another thing I would like to point out, next meeting, I probably won't be around.
Okay.
I'm planning on being out of town for 10 days,
Okay,
so
okay.
I think
And we do have an agenda. Yeah, we do have an agenda. We're actually backed up to the November,
And I will be
13th
back
meeting.
in town, I think, what is it, October 29th is my intent, so leaving
Okay.
the 20th and coming back the 29th.
okay, I think November 3rd is our next meeting.
Oh, I might make it to that one.
So,
I won't be here for November 3rd.
okay. It will be very important for me to know for quorum, because November 3rd, we are going to have an agenda item that will be a little tricky, that we're going to need for sure a quorum, and then I'm going to need you to be really prepared. So,
And I won't have an opportunity to review because I'm not coming back till that Friday night, Saturday,
Okay.
so
But you could look Monday.
I could look at it possibly Monday.
yep, so.
We could do a Zoom where I've got a creaky cart in the background. No.
So anyway, just to let you know that we're gonna have another one that's probably gonna have an audience like what we had on the 3rd.
Okay.
And I do not have that staff report done yet. You'll be getting it, and then you'll get more info. I was just trying to get through this rezone
Variance
first.
or-
It is a IUP.
jeez, me again.
Yep, so just so you're aware.
That'd be Dave.
Question for Amy. You know, I had asked you a few questions earlier today. Is there any way that, like this Monroe thing, any way ordinance could be changed so that plat development in ag can be allowed rather than having to rezone first? I mean, because there's already language that says you can do plats.
I think that's a great discussion for when we're looking at the ag zoning district as a whole and looking at what that might look like and how that language could look. So I think that that's a great discussion item for our meeting with the county board. As far as for that, it'll marry very well into that and have that discussion for an ordinance change.
You know, like Dave pointed out earlier, that Ripley Township is in favor of 80 acres. But they might also be in favor of, a plat, where you concentrate.
They've
So,
had more control over it maybe of some kind.
yeah, design and,
Yep.
So you put 4 houses in there, or 6 houses on
Yep.
40 acres, or something like that, you know?
if the commissioners approve this, we'll have a lot of input into that plat design.
We will?
Maybe we'll say, no, 5 acres,
Yep.
nothing smaller than that, or.
Yep.
So I think that would be something to think about and make notes to yourself on, as far as that would be a great part when we talk about dwelling density in the ag zoning district and how platting may or may not fit in with that. That's a great discussion that we can have as part of that.
Very good. Give me wrap this up.
This withdrawn, Jaworski.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, or we?
Not done.
Oh, man.
Is this withdrawn,
Real close.
BOA, is that going to be coming forward?
No, it will not be coming
Just-
forward.
Is
Nope.
that the guy that
found a-
spoke at the
Yeah,
bell?
we found a permittable solution.
Okay. So there's no more new business?
No.
We have no more business. Okay, I just have one comment. And before Marv adjourns. I've heard of like 2 or 3 different meetings we've had, and I would just want you guys to think about this a little bit. We're talking about this ag land, we put a value on it. It's like the best ag land and not as good at ag land. Okay, my problem with that statement is, and we have a commissioner, so you can hear that too, is we don't say farmland, we say ag land, right? Okay, so now a guy like me that raises beef cattle, it might not be the best crop land, but it's the best pasture land I can get. So sometimes that's just as valuable. So just when we think about some of them things, sometimes we just say it's not, I don't know how you put value on it, is all I'm trying to say.
Look at it through a larger lens.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is whatever, but.
I appreciate you guys listening to me. I stated my opinions tonight, and I had reasons for them, so.
Yep.
Very good. At the same time, we have to balance the need
Yes.
for residential, commercial,
Yep.
and ag in ag.
I say keep them around Little Falls.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
There's a second?
I second that.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Aye.